right, if we look back to the practice that we've been doing in class for the last 2 days, we've been working with this concept of creating the illusion of three-dimensional space using paint. In order to do that, we have been working with the concept of creating an underpainting. So all of these forms first had an underpainting painted underneath them, using either a gray, lightly gray like this one is, or a complementary color to the color that we want to have our object be. So my cone here, I painted my shadows this light kind of murky purple. My cylinder, that's red, I used the green because that's the complementary color and it will naturally create the shadows that I need for my object. Today we are moving on to like the next level of complexity of practice. So I'm going to go ahead and if I have room with my shapes, obviously I can add that to my shapes, but I'm going to go ahead and switch to a new sheet. At your table, you should have a folder that looks like this. There are the reminder steps right on the front of the folder. These reminder steps are also very step-by-step and outlined with visual examples on the bulletin board. But what's inside here are a variety of different fruit for you to choose from. And you'll notice that they're all black and white because we're going to focus first on the values. And there is a small sheet of something called transfer paper. You need one of each thing from that folder. So you're going to choose a fruit. Everyone has to choose a different fruit at your table because I'm going to keep that part. Transfer paper, when I'm finished, will go back in the folder. But what I'm going to do is take my sketchbook. And this is the first time, we've talked about it before, that I don't have to be able to draw to be able to paint. So we're going to actually trace this photograph. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my transfer paper. One side is darker and one side is lighter. So I'm going to put my transfer paper darker side down on my sketchbook page. And then I'm going to place my image on the sketchbook page as well. At this point, if I would like to, I can grab a paper clip. They're in a coffee mug on the counter. So I can go ahead and paper clip my pages together so that it doesn't slide while I'm working. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna paper clip this down into my sketchbook. That way it shouldn't slide. And then I'm gonna take a pencil or a ballpoint pen. Actually works really well for this, even if it's out of ink. Or if I only have a mechanical pencil, I am going to shove the pen lead up inside and just use the plastic tip. You can't push hard enough with a mechanical pencil, but this transfer paper is pressure sensitive. And so what I'm going to do is trace everything that I need for my little painting here. And this is the first time we've done this, and it does take a little practice to get the hang of. And then it's important that you are thinking about that the quality of your transfer does affect the finished quality of your painting. So I do like to lightly trace where some of my shadow shapes will be. Oops. So I'm gonna trace here where it starts to be darker. I'm also gonna trace my cast shadow. And then, like I said, lightly where the gray changes, because that will help guide my painting. Before I take this apart, what I'm gonna do is just lift it and make sure that I have a really complete idea of everything that I'm gonna need. So I want this to stay together, and I'm just gonna peel it back and make sure that I have a really detailed drawing. My transfer paper, like I said, goes back in the folder for my table. My image, this photocopy, I need to keep. So I want to make sure that I hang on to that because I need to look at it the whole time I'm painting. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this over, and we're going to slide so that this, I think it's supposed to be a pear. It's kind of an oddly shaped pear, but I kind of like it. I'm going to put it so that it's right next to my drawing. We are going to begin with our underpainting, okay? Underpainting first, which is just the shadows. I do want to think ahead to maybe what color pear I want this pear to be later on. If I want it to be a green, because pears come different colors. I want it to be a green pear, maybe I'm going to paint gray shadows. If I want it to be a red pear, I'm gonna maybe paint kind of some grayish green shadows. Maybe I want it to be a yellow pear, and then I'm gonna paint some purpley shadows. So you can see I have to kind of think ahead to what color I want my object to be before I start making my shadows happen, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and use a light gray for my shadows that I'm going to just tint green a little bit. So a reminder that gray is this blue that's next to the green, the warm blue, and it's the warm red, or the color that we now call orange. So I'm going to mix that up so that I make a gray. And then I'm actually just going to take this gray and I'm going to mix it in with this green that I already have on my palette. So I'm gonna have kind of a brownish green color for my underpainting. So you can see I have a kind of a grayish green paint that I'm gonna work with. So what I'm gonna do now is, looking at the image, I am going to paint my values. And the way that I'm gonna do that is I'm looking over here at my photograph, and I'm starting where it's darkest. I am going to work from dark to light, remembering, of course, that I'm going to need my shadows to be a little lighter on my painting than I want them to be, or a little lighter than I want them to be on my finished painting. So we've talked a lot in class about not using black. So I have some of my shadow shapes here now. Oh, there's a really dark shadow here under this leaf. So I'm gonna go ahead and put some of that in. And that drags all the way down here. So you can see it looks a little strange. It looks a little like I've just outlined it. What I'm going to do is take my paintbrush now, and I'm cleaning it out. So my paintbrush is clean. I'm going to squeeze it so that it's dry. So I have no paint in my paintbrush. I can paint over here all day long. It's just a little bit of dampness. And I'm going to tease this paint out into my painting. Watching again my image over here. Paying attention to how dark or how light those shadow shapes are. Wanting to pull, this will be my highlight, so I want that to stay relatively clear of paint. So I'm gonna squeeze, I cleaned my paintbrush out again. This shadow here is pretty hard because it's under the leaf, but this one kind of blends out a little bit. So you can see I traced the edge of that shadow, so I have that for reference here on the surface of my paper. So I'm gonna make sure that I pull enough of that paint out. My shadow shape on the table kind of softens because that leaf is farther away. And I'm going to work in this manner to create a finished version of this pear that has no color, but just shadow shapes. So I see that I don't have quite enough paint, so I just grabbed a little bit more for here. And obviously that's not entirely white, so I'm gonna work to kind of soften that up as well. I then will have to wait for this to dry. I do recommend, because remember, this is for practice, that as this version dries, my recommendation for you is to paint a second one. So I recommend that you paint both. Two versions, like you maybe want to try two different underpainting colors, but I can't just sit here in painting class now and wait for this to dry. One, that's boring, and two, that's not giving me the practice that I need. I also need to get some of these shadows on the stem, and I don't think I have a dark enough shadow here at the top edge of my pear. So I'm gonna go ahead and just darken that a little bit, clean my paintbrush out, and you can see that I'm going to continue to work. I'm going to be painting this until it's pretty much, it feels like a finished little black and white painting. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the color. So I want you to go ahead and begin this process of creating the underpainting for the fruit that you've chosen, recognizing that it will be a little lighter in value. So if you want to check it with your phone, it will be a little lighter in value than you want your finished painting to be. And that you need to do too, because right now I'm going to have to let this guy dry before I can add any color.